Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Hoosier Baseball. I am your host, Brian Tonsoni. That magical season is one where your team program has success beyond expectations. That magical season is one to remember for the ages. The goal of any baseball program is to have multiple magical seasons, but today we have Chris Webb from 10innings.com on the show to remember the Indiana University Baseball Magical 2013 run to the College World Series. Welcome, Chris, and thanks for joining us on the show. Chris, how long have you been covering Big Ten baseball, and how did you get started? Chris, our connection might be bad here. I think I've lost Chris. Please be patient, and we will try to get right back with him. Yeah. Okay. So I'll edit this into the audio portion. But the first question, Chris, is how long have you been covering Big Ten baseball, and how did you get started in covering a sport that is maybe second or third in the Big Ten in popularity?
Let's see. I think it would have been officially in 2009. I was a student at Ohio State, and I had a lot of friends that played on the team there while I was a student. And there was a blog started by Todd Lamb, the former SED at Ohio State. He was in between jobs, and he took a job with the Southland Conference and knew that I knew the team, and that's why I wanted to cover the team. So August 2008, going to the 2009 season when I first started. And yeah, just back then, it probably honestly would have been even fifth in the conference as far as sports, as far as recognition and coverage and interest. Obviously, the football, men's, women's basketball, even wrestling. I sensed that it was a growing sport, and it wasn't that far long ago, 2007, where the Big Ten had three teams in a regional. So kind of sense that the Big Ten was growing as far as baseball and coverage, and see the popular baseball growing. So figured why not take a chance to cover Ohio State and see where that would go.
Well, we appreciate your work, as obviously we're crazy baseball fans here at iubase.com. But prior to the 2013 Indiana run, you started covering college baseball and Big Ten baseball in 2009. Did you think that we would see a Big Ten team in Omaha?
I did, and I got to give credit actually to Tracy Smith, where he was the finalist for the Ohio State job in 2010 after Bob Powell retired. And he had declined that opportunity, and he and I got on the phone, and he had mentioned that he truly believed that we'd see a Big Ten team in Omaha in the next 3 to 5 years, and lo and behold, it'd be his team there in Indiana. And that did it 3 years to the day, pretty much. But I just kind of sensing that the Big Ten, one of the reasons why I started covering, I just thought the Big Ten never got the coverage it deserved relative to your power conference at the time, the ACC and SEC. But I think the competition and the level of play wasn't all that off. They had a lot of things that made sustaining success in the Big Ten difficult. Back then, we didn't have the universal start date. Back then, the Big Ten was more restrictive on oversight. What you can do as far as replenishing your rosters after kids leave early for the draft. So I did think that, let's say Corey Lupke, who tells us how Big Ten pitchers here at Ohio State, was, that far off of a like pitcher from the SEC. Just didn't think maybe the depth was there. But once you start going to the conference and talking to some of the coaches and seeing how they work, how they interact, seeing more of the players, I thought that we would see one day here in the near future back then that, a team would break through. And it didn't take too much longer after that for Indiana to do that team.
And that Indiana team was the 2013 team. And Kyle Schwarber, Sam Travis, Joey Donato on the mound, a lot of good players. What, in your mind, made that team so special as that breakthrough Big Ten team to get to the College World Series?
I think it's the mental makeup of each of those players. And you guys, that year, Indiana wasn't a dominant team that year. Going to the last series of the season, they were at Ohio State, and Ohio State won the Thursday game. They had Indiana beat through 8 2/3, I believe it was, or 8 and third the ninth inning. Where if Ohio State would have won that game, they would at least share the Big Ten title with Indiana. So Indiana, they didn't run away with the conference that year. Ohio State and Nebraska finished tied for second, 2 games back. But they got in regional there. Chad Clark at the home run against Valparaiso, and at that point, I think the players got a sense that, wow, we can do this, we can believe. You go back to 2009 when they won the Big Ten tournament. They went to a regional down in Louisville. They just got ambushed. They just got whacked, and they just didn't look like the same competitive team. So I think once they got that first win under their belt there in Valparaiso, the regional set just played out perfectly for them. That super regional in Tallahassee, they played right to their capabilities. As a power hitting team, that field played perfect to Schwarber just to move in those guys. So I think what they did a really good job was they didn't let the moment get too big for them. They collectively stayed calm, they stayed cool, they did what was them, and just stayed natural to themselves. And a lot of times you don't see that, where some teams, they get in their microscope and unfortunately they falter, and the pressure gets too much for them and they kind of crumble. But I think that team, just the makeup, the coaching staff, Tracy Smith, Ty Neal, Ben Greenspan, even Fred Norrie, just a couple of them, they just kind of let the guys play, and the guys went out there and played relaxed and comfortable, and they didn't let they showcase their talent in a way that allowed them to reach Omaha.
You mentioned the Chad Clark home run game. That was against the 4th seed team Valpo, and you talk about how mentally strong the team. They had to be strong to come back in that 9th inning. And if that game goes a different way, we might not be talking about a 2013 team. But that particular game and those series of at-bats did show that that mental toughness that you're talking about.
Yeah, you go back to that, and I don't know if it's hard to remember or easily forgot, but Valpo's closer, Charles Kowalski, he entered that regional like a 1.1 ERA and like on a ridiculous 20-plus inning scoreless streak. So I think Indiana was also down by 2 runs. So for them to string, I think, back-to-back doubles of 4 Clark's home run, just kind of showed that resolve and said, hey, we're not out of it. We know we have the capability in the lineup. We know we can score some runs here. And we always think back to that team as far as being, Travis and Schwarber and DeMuth and all those guys. And it was Chad Clark, who came up with the big hit. So, I think it's kind of going back to that mental makeup. You give Tracy Smith a lot of credit for just building an environment, having a team mentality where there's, not to be cliche, but have that never let up mentality where you get a guy like Chad Clark step up in a big situation. So, yeah, you mentioned it. If that doesn't go their way, you're in an elimination game against Florida. Florida was a bit angry that they had to go to Bloomington, that they felt a little disrespected. So who knows if they are able to rally out of that 0-1 hole, but that's not what happened. Chad Clark came with a big hit. Bart Field went lit off, and I think that kind of set the fuse on what became Indiana baseball that we know for the next 5 years.
It seemed like they had some belief there, and Valpo scored 2 runs in the top of the 9th, I believe, too. So to come back, even in that situation, down in the 9th, but then to have the top of the 9th, again, takes a special team. And I do agree that the coaching staff has a big part of that in how you run a program, to have your guys relaxed in order to make that comeback. And let's talk a little bit about the experience at the College World Series. Indiana wins the first game 2-0 on a great pitching effort by Joey Donato. And they actually had 2 complete games, losing the elimination game 1-0 to Oregon State. But what did you think of their stay in Omaha for 2013?
Yeah, so everything that I said about, just that Florida State, the College Stadium, playing true and it's right up their alley. As we know, TD Ameritrade Park did not play, to the strengths of Indiana. And we saw great pitching performances out of Donato, Alex Slayers. It's just unfortunate that ballpark is a graveyard before the balls got changed. But, I think the biggest takeaway from that, regardless of the 1 and 2 showing, those are tough, hard-fought games for Mississippi State and Oregon State that, here and there a hit that drops in, it's a different ball game, and who knows, they can be national champions. But the biggest takeaway is just I think what can get lost nowadays, unfortunately, is this win-at-all-cost mentality. In the college baseball, it's so hard just to get to Omaha that, there's a reason why we celebrate giving Omaha. It's not the national champion. It's, who made it to Omaha that year, those final 8 teams. So I just think that week there in Omaha was something that not only the players won't forget about, but even just the university. It really allowed a university that wasn't known for having this baseball program to be put on the map, and it's hard to take that away. I mean, we're 5 years removed from it, but it feels like yesterday. Just the memories are so vivid, and just the kind of the flashbacks, and probably telling stories of you guys know where you were when you watched the games, or myself out of Omaha. So it's being around the team. I loved that. What they truly soaked it all in. They had a great time. They had a member, and obviously they're there to win, and they came up short in that aspect. But I think that what they did was create a legacy that's going to go, beyond these 5 years and the next 5 years. It's really, we're going to look back on 2013 Indiana team for probably generations. As far as now, they did something that caught the nation's attention, uplifted the university, a conference, a region, and it is something truly special.
And I think you see that with Indiana baseball since then, getting 3 at-large berths out of the next 4 years. And now it's somewhat, from our fan base, an expectation that we make a regional every year, which had not been so before 2013. But also you mentioned just now that it also helped the conference. And we've seen, I think, an explosion of better facilities, better recruiting, teams, multiple teams making the regional. So do you think that College World Series run of 2013 had a big impact, and maybe a little more specific, what was that impact on the conference?
It's a fine line just because it could take years for something to come to fruition that, is working under the radar and under the surface. So a lot of people point to Nebraska during the conference 2012 as far as this new day of Big Ten baseball. It's like, well, Purdue had a great year or a great team that year as well. So, I don't want to discredit what that run did. I think mostly what it did was it showed players, high school players in the Midwest, that they don't have to leave to go to Vanderbilt, to Mississippi State, to Florida, to North Carolina to play baseball at the highest level. I don't think there's been a huge change as far as commitment. I know a lot of facility stuff. Those are years in advance. With case at Tony Barkhoff Stadium or Barkhoff Field with how long Tracy Smith trying to get that going. So,
right.
But I think the biggest impact was just players, who were 10, 12 years old, seeing Indiana, on the highest stage on ESPN, just going head to head against Oregon State, against Mississippi State. So whether you're a kid in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Iowa, you can stay home. You can go to the state school that you and your family rooted for your entire lives. You don't have to all of a sudden go south because you can play baseball at a high level. So I think that's the biggest change for me. I think you're starting to see that really trickle down now, just where programs I think have more depth. And obviously coaches are doing a great job recruiting, and recruiting nowadays is being aided a little bit with how much exposure out there for different organizations and outlets. But I think it's in the mindset now of Midwest kids that, hey, I can't stay here. It helps obviously with the Indiana Day, but it helps that Illinois 2 years later that they were also national seed. Indiana's 2014 team was national seed. This year, what Minnesota did, I'm hosting the regional and going to Corvallis. So I think it's one of those things that's a domino effect. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the spark that lighted this enormous bonfire, but I think it helped with help. I think the biggest thing for me is just to take away of what that instills the mindset of the next generation of Big Ten baseball players.
And that makes a lot of sense, because in the past, if you wanted to go to Omaha, you had to go to some warm weather places, and now that's changed, and we are seeing a lot more competitive teams in the Big Ten. You mentioned recruiting. Indiana had a couple of major leaguers. Sam Travis has been up and down with the Boston Red Sox. Schwarber is with the Cubs. Slagers on the mound has been up to the major leagues. There's been some players that have advanced in the minor leagues. So if we look at that as quality players, but what does it take for a Big Ten team player makeup to go? Offense, pitching, and how does the Big Ten compete with the SECs and those other dominant conferences? What kind of makeup do you think is needed in the Big Ten to get back there?
I know it's cliche as far as pitching defense championships, and I think that's true to the degree that does help you in the regular season, where you're going weekend after weekend after weekend. But to me, I'm always going to say it comes down to you have to have an offensive team. Just with play, you're running the top pitcher. You're running the teams that don't cost themselves or give you extra outs. So you're going to have to be a team that can score a run from first base every now and then. You're going to have to be a team that can run into the ball and hit it over the fence. So I think if I had to pick one aspect, it'd be I would take a team that 1 through 9, like Minnesota this year. 1 through 9, they were a methodic team to put the ball in play, had enough power to score a run for first base, had enough power to go gap to gap, hit one out here and there. So I think that's the ideal makeup of a team, but also with a 64-team tournament, so much of it is left to the draw. I mean, you may have a team that has a lot of power with left-hand side, but, there's a short pitch for right-handed hitters or something like that. Just you don't know, how it's going to play out and who you're going to face, and you may just have, unfortunately, a tough match. You're truly one of the 16 best teams, but just that night you're going to run into a first-round draft pick and he's going to, stymie you guys. So, it's hard to really pinpoint one thing. I'm not more opposite, but the NCAA tournament, so much of it's luck and the draw and who you play, where you play. So I think really the biggest thing is just to be in a position where you can host, so you can control at least one of those elements. And to do so, that's going to obviously require you to have a good RPI, have 35-plus wins, do well in the conference. So there's no magical bullet or guaranteed formula or ideal way. But I think the more teams that host a regional is going to help more teams host a regional, which obviously in terms of the conference or the College World Series. And to me, the best way to sustain success is to have a team that can hit the ball, drive extra base hits, driving runs, and more so than other teams.
Do you foresee the Big Ten? I think the conference had 5 teams in this year, 4 or 5 teams. Are they going to be consistently this conference consistently in that range? And do you what programs do you think are most likely in the next 3 or 4 years to make a run? Minnesota this year was in the super regionals. What are your thoughts on the overall quality of the conference?
Yeah, so this past year, 2018 season was the third time in 4 years that at least 4 teams made the NCAA tournament. So there were 5 teams in 2015, 3 in 16, 5 in 17, and 4 this last year. So right there, over a 4-year period, you already have 17 teams. So I think it's reasonable, and I know coaches expect this, that you're going to have 4 teams in the mix year in and year out. Even this year, there's late into the year, you could have also added Illinois and Iowa and Michigan, which, you're talking now 7 teams that were truly in it. The NCAA tournament discussion, 2015, you also had 8 teams who were truly in it. You had 8 teams who were in the top 6 in the RPI. So, I think what we are experiencing here in the last few years is be the new norm. It's going to take a lot to go on for the Big Ten to be back to a 2-bid conference. In the good years, you can probably see it push 5, 6 teams. So, I think this is where we can set the Big Ten to kind of settle in this new environment. And where I see teams really excelling over here the next, I'd say, 2 years, a 2-year window, so 19 and 20. Michigan returns a lot next year. I think Michigan should be a top 25 preseason team. Probably my favorite going into next year, just as far as they return their entire rotation, they return 8 of their 9 position players in the field. So they're going to be really loaded. Minnesota's still going to be good. A lot of those guys, they got attention this year. Max Meyer moves the rotation behind or either in front of Patrick Frederickson, the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year, who did that as a freshman, the first time in conference history. So they're going to have 2 studs there leading the rotation, along with Tim Mazinga, Jordan Kazuki, Eli Wilson, and Cole McDivitt. So they return a lot. So they should be right there in the mix for possibly a 3rd Big Ten title in 4 years. You may see a bounce back here from Nebraska. Ohio State's pretty strong. Indiana, there's some question marks there just as far as what's going to be like to replace Luke Miller, Logan Stowers, Timmy Aaron. But there's enough parts there that, we see and we can expect in the end to still be competitive and be strong. So, right there, I think you're going to have 4 or 5 teams in the mix again for conference championships, NCAA host mix, national rankings, and to legitimately have a shot to get to super regional and potentially get to Omaha.
And that's the goal of every program. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. College World Series starts tomorrow. Do you have a favorite?
I'm going to go with Florida. It's with what they have on the top of their rotation. Brady Singer, Jackson Power, those 2 guys. They were first-round draft picks for a reason this past week. So they also they know what it takes to win as a defending champion. So I think they're going to repeat, and we're going to have Florida, or leave Omaha as College World Series champions again.
Well, and I hope that the Indiana fans listening to this podcast, we have a chance to get back to Omaha in the near future. I've been out twice. I did make it out in 2013 and went back just as a fan of baseball in 2016. It is a great experience for the town and all of the the colors and the atmosphere of the College World Series. Chris, we appreciate you being on the show. You're always welcome. If you're in town in Bloomington on a Saturday, iubase.com hosts a tailgate. We'd love to give you some food and talk some baseball. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit about the 2013 Indiana Hoosiers and Big Ten baseball.
Absolutely. And it didn't come up, but I want to make sure you guys get credit for what you guys are doing. I also think a part that's helping players see their full potential in the Big Ten and want to go to a Big Ten school. And I think it's Omaha from Big Ten school is coverage stand. So either the Big Ten Network or a lot of individual people like yourselves or individual outlets really take on a team and getting the coverage start to finish. So you guys saw the growth of Big Ten baseball here in the region, the North as well. So yeah, you guys do a great job. Always enjoy seeing what you guys have on your website and social media, and it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to you guys. So thank you for the opportunity.
It's an honor and a pleasure. We look forward to a good College World Series and, again, a good Big Ten season next year in 2019. So for Chris Webb, I'm Brian Tonsoni for Talking Hoosier Baseball. You can find this podcast on any podcast catcher under the podcast of Sports Talk with Tonsoni. You could go to iubase.com. You can check us out on Twitter at iubase17 and at see you at the BART. Thanks for listening. Go Hoosiers.